discussed in the previous video and actually code it and demonstrate it through code. So I have a link node, I have an ID. Now with IntelliJ, I can right click once I define my private member variables and press generate. And it gives me the option of creating a constructor. I can say create the constructor, select the pieces of data that need to be passed to my constructor and hit OK. It builds my constructor for me. We're now in a position to start looking at this as an object and testing it. So let's come over to my stack test. Let's begin by creating my first object, and let's call this SN1, short for stack node 1. And we're going to create a stack node, and if I type it correctly, and the member variables are the ID, which I'm going to call this 1, and I'm going to pass it null. Okay, so the question for you is, oh, and I've missed out the new keyword. Okay, let's just redo that. Wasn't happy with that. I missed the keyword out and it's kind of jumbled my code up a bit. There we go. All right, now if you can see what I've got here, I've created one. The ID is 1, the link node is null. Okay, so second line is I want to create SN2, but I'm not going to create an object from it. That just says that that will hold the address of a stack node. Then, as my previous video said, I'm going to take SN1 and assign it to SN2. Now, what I'm going to do here is pop a breakpoint in here and a breakpoint in here, and we are going to see this code in execution in debug mode, so you can witness this. So I'm going to click debug, and we're going to talk this thing through so you can see what's going on. Right, give it a moment. Just out of screen, the build is just completing, and it's just about to run, parsing the Java. There we go. Okay, so it is almost there. Right. Okay, so I've got a couple of technical issues here. Could not find or load main class. So what you'll notice up at the top, because I changed this to stack test, up at the top for the configuration, I need to point that to this stack test. It's pointing to what I had previously, which was the UOP main. You may or may not have witnessed me. A quick way around it is just to hit the play button by the main, and often it just updates the connections. There we go, it's updated it up here for me. That's the fastest way. So now it's running it again, and it's running this main. Remember, you can have several main methods in a single project, and so it needs to know which one you're actually running. Right, so give me a minute. Okay, I just hit the run button, didn't I? So I actually need to hit the debug. So I hit these marks here. There we go. So now we're in debug mode. We've entered the main. We haven't run that line of code. The code has just stopped before it. So I'm going to run that line of code by F8 or stepping over. And I should have an object called SN1. Down here, my variables, there is my SN1 object. It's got a kind of address memory. It's got an @ sign and a 469 down here. Treat that as an address location, okay? Now bear that concept in mind. So this is sitting at that address. It's got an ID 1 and the link node is null. So there's no node it's linked to. Let's now jump down to here and let's see what's happened. So the code has jumped over, created a reference for SN2, and then it's signed SN1 to SN2. And if you have a look down here, probably better actually if I do that a step at a time. Give me a second, I'll rerun it, stop it and rerun it so I can demonstrate that a little bit clearer. Right, so let's rerun that line of code. And it is, yeah, I'd have to put because that's not actually doing anything except defining something. It at this stage, there's nothing in it. So it's just skipping it. Right, so I have link node null ID equals 1. Now, if I assign it, what will happen to SN2? Go over here. SN2 is at 469 ID 1 linked node. This is not a copy of SN1, the first stack node. It's pointing to the exactly same location. So the same data, same object you created here is now also access through SN2. And that is the idea of sharing and passing addresses when you use the equal sign. So you have several consequences. If you don't have an object, you're going to have issues. And if you, well, we'll pause there and we'll move on to the other elements of the topic in a minute.